Just tell them you fell off your bike, my mother hissed, ripping my arm as we sat in the emergency room waiting area. I was 16, cradling my dislocated shoulder, trying to hold back tears while my brother Marcus sat smugly beside her, not a trace of remorse on his face. My name is Emma Sullivan, and this wasn't the first time my family had forced me to lie about my injuries. Marcus, 2 years older than me, had been getting increasingly violent since our father's death 3 years ago. My mother called it acting out, but I called it what it was: abuse. Mrs. Sullivan, a nurse called out, clipboard in hand. We're ready for Emma. I stood up, wincing at the pain shooting through my shoulder. Before I could take a step, my mother's hand tightened around my wrist. Remember, she whispered, it was an accident. We don't want Marcus's future ruined over a silly mishap. Marcus's future. That's all that ever mattered in our house since Dad died. Marcus's grades, Marcus's football scholarship prospects, Marcus's reputation. Nobody seemed concerned about my future, my safety, or my constant trips to different emergency rooms across town. The nurse led us to an examination room, frowning as she took in my appearance. Can you tell me what happened? She asked, her kind eyes meeting mine. I opened my mouth, but my mother jumped in. She fell off her bike, she said quickly. Emma's always been clumsy, hasn't she, sweetie? I nodded mechanically, the rehearsed lie tasting bitter in my mouth. The truth was, Marcus had grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back when I refused to let him copy my chemistry homework. He'd been failing his classes, and my mother insisted I help him maintain his GPA for college scouts. The nurse made notes, her pen scratching against paper as she documented another false story. But this time, something was different. She kept glancing between my mother and me, her expression unreadable. Emma, could you come with me for some x-rays? She asked. Standard procedure. Mom, she paused, looking at Marcus. Your brother can wait here. My mother started to protest, but the nurse was firm. Hospital policy, she said simply. Once we were alone in the x-ray room, the nurse, her name tag read Sarah, closed the door and turned to me. This isn't your first shoulder injury, is it? She asked quietly. I froze. We usually went to different hospitals to avoid questions, but something about her tone made me think she knew more than she was letting on. I've seen your records, she continued. Different hospitals, similar injuries always explained away as accidents. Emma, we have a new system now. All hospital records in the state are connected. Dr. Anderson, our orthopedic specialist, noticed the pattern. My heart started racing. For years, I've been carrying this secret, protecting Marcus because my mother convinced me it would destroy our family if anyone knew the truth. But here was someone who had already pieced it together. I started, but the words caught in my throat. Sarah placed a gentle hand on my uninjured shoulder. You don't have to say anything right now, but Dr. Anderson would like to review your case, your complete case. And Emma? She waited until I met her eyes. We can help you. You don't have to keep covering for him. Tears I'd been holding back for years threatened to spill. My mom, I whispered, she'll never forgive me. Your mother's job is to protect you, Sarah said firmly. If she's not doing that, then we need to make sure someone does. As Sarah took the x-rays, my mind raced. All those emergency room visits, all the different stories, falling downstairs, tripping over garden hoses, sports accidents, they were all documented. All those times Marcus had hurt me and my mother had protected him were there in black and white. When we returned to the examination room, my mother was pacing while Marcus played on his phone. Dr. Anderson was waiting for us, a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see right through our family's carefully constructed lies. Mrs. Sullivan, she said, her voice professional but cold. I've reviewed Emma's medical history. We need to discuss a pattern of injuries that's deeply concerning. My mother's face went pale. Marcus's phone slipped from his hands, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt something that had been missing from my life since Dad died. Hope. The truth was finally coming to light, and no amount of lying or covering up could stop it. The hospital records had told my story when I couldn't, and now everything was about to change. Dr. Anderson turned to me, her expression softening. Emma, would you like to tell me what really happened to your shoulder today? I looked at my mother, who was shaking her head slightly, then at Marcus, who was glaring at me with the same threatening look he'd given me countless times before. But this time, I wasn't alone. This time, I had proof. I took a deep breath and began to speak. Marcus did this, I said, my voice trembling but clear. He twisted my arm behind my back because I wouldn't let him copy my chemistry homework. The silence in the examination room was deafening. My mother's face contorted with a mix of horror and anger, while Marcus leaped to his feet, his mask of indifference finally cracking. "She's lying," he shouted. "Mom, tell them she's lying." But Dr. Anderson was already pulling up images on her tablet. "Mrs. Sullivan, these are Emma's x-rays from the past 3 years. Multiple shoulder dislocations, a fractured wrist, 2 broken ribs." She swiped through the images methodically, each injury reported at a different hospital, each with an increasingly improbable explanation. My mother sank into a chair, her face ashen. "We were just protecting our family," she whispered. "After their father died, Marcus needed stability. He needed consequences," Dr. Anderson cut in sharply. "Instead, you taught him that violence was acceptable and helped him hide it. Do you understand what message that sent to both your children?" I watched as years of carefully constructed excuses crumbled around my mother. Every lie she told, every time she'd made me promise to protect Marcus, every moment she'd chosen him over my safety, it was all laid bare under the harsh hospital lights. Sarah, the nurse, stepped into the room with a man in a suit who introduced himself as a hospital social worker. Marcus's face went from angry to panicked. "You can't prove anything," he snarled, but his voice cracked. "It's her word against mine." "Actually," Dr. Anderson said, turning her tablet to show a detailed analysis, "these injuries tell a very specific story. The angle of the dislocations, the pattern of the breaks, they're consistent with intentional force, not accidents, and certainly not from falling off bikes or downstairs." The social worker cleared his throat. "Given the evidence in Emma's statement, we're legally required to report this. The police will need to be involved." My mother burst into tears. "Please," she begged. "Marcus has a scholarship coming. He's going to college next year. We can handle this as a family." "Like we've been handling it?" I asked, finding strength in the supportive presence of Dr. Anderson and Sarah. "Mom, look at me. Really look at me. I'm your daughter too. When did you stop protecting me?" She flinched as if I'd slapped her. For the first time, I saw shame in her eyes instead of determination to protect Marcus. Marcus made a move toward the door, but the social worker blocked his path. "I suggest you stay right here," he said firmly. "Running will only make things worse." 2 police officers arrived shortly after. They took statements, photographed my injuries, and reviewed the medical records. Marcus alternated between threats and pleas, while my mother sat in silent shock. "Emma," one of the officers said gently, "would you like to press charges?" I looked at my brother, really looked at him. The brother who'd once shared ice cream with me after school, who taught me to ride a bike before Dad died, who'd turned into someone I didn't recognize. Part of me wanted to say no, to give him one more chance. But then I remembered every time I lived in fear in my own home, every time I had to hide bruises at school, every time I silently cried myself to sleep while my mother comforted Marcus down the hall. "Yes," I said firmly. "I want to press charges." Marcus lunged at me, his face contorted with rage, but the officers quickly restrained him. As they led him away in handcuffs, he shouted, "You've ruined everything. Mom, do something." But my mother didn't move. She sat there, tears streaming down her face, as the reality of what she'd enabled finally hit her. Dr. Anderson placed a hand on my uninjured shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "It won't be easy, but you're not alone anymore." The social worker explained that I couldn't go home with my mother that night. Child Protective Services would need to be involved, and temporary arrangements would have to be made. "I have an aunt," I said quietly, "my dad's sister. Mom stopped letting us visit her after he died. But we'll contact her," the social worker assured me. As they prepared to transfer me to a different hospital for overnight observation, my mother finally spoke. "Emma," she whispered, "I'm so sorry. I thought I was holding our family together, but I was just breaking it more." I looked at her, this woman who had failed me so completely yet was still my mother. "I know," I said simply, "but sorry isn't enough anymore." As I was wheeled out of the examination room, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a window. For the first time in years, I didn't see a victim staring back at me. I saw someone strong, someone who had finally spoken her truth. The hospital records had given me a voice. but I was the one who finally chose to use it. 6 months after that night in the hospital, I sat in a courtroom watching Marcus plead guilty to assault charges. My Aunt Jessica, who had taken me immediately after that night, squeezed my hand as the judge delivered the sentence. 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order, she announced firmly. Mr. Sullivan, I hope you understand the gravity of your actions and use this opportunity to change your path. Marcus nodded, looking smaller in his suit than I'd ever seen him. The smug brother who terrorized me for years was gone, replaced by someone who finally had to face consequences. My mother sat on the other side of the courtroom. She'd been attending therapy too, trying to understand how she'd failed so badly as a parent. We weren't close anymore. That would take years to rebuild, if ever, but at least she'd stopped making excuses for Marcus. After the hearing, Dr. Anderson, who had testified as an expert witness, approached me. "How's the shoulder?" she asked, her kind eyes scanning my much improved posture. "Better," I smiled. Physical therapy helped a lot, and I glanced at Aunt Jessica. Living somewhere safe helped more. The past 6 months had been transformative. Aunt Jessica's house became my sanctuary. She helped me apply to colleges, celebrated when I got accepted to my dream school with a full scholarship, and never once made me feel like I had to diminish myself to protect someone else. My mother approached hesitantly, clutching her purse. "Emma," she said softly, "I'd like to help with your college expenses. I know it doesn't make up for anything, but—" "You're right, it doesn't," Aunt Jessica interjected protectively, but I touched her arm. "Thank you," I told my mother, "but I've got it covered. My scholarship includes housing, and I've saved enough from my part-time job for books." The job was another freedom I'd found, working at a local bookstore where no one expected me to give up my earnings to cover Marcus's debts or family emergencies. As we left the courthouse, I spotted Sarah, the nurse who'd first noticed the pattern in my hospital records. She'd become a friend over the months, checking in regularly and even helping me with college applications. "Proud of you, kid," she said, hugging me carefully. "You're going to do amazing things at college." That evening, Aunt Jessica hosted a small celebration dinner, not for the court verdict, but for my scholarship. As we sat around her dining table with Dr. Anderson and Sarah, who'd both become part of my chosen family, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "I want to make a toast," Aunt Jessica announced, raising her glass. "To Emma, who showed us all what real strength looks like. And to medical records," she added with a wink, "which tell the truth even when people won't." We laughed, but she was right. Those hospital records had given me the evidence I needed to break free. They'd proven what I'd been trying to tell people for years. "You know," Dr. Anderson said thoughtfully, "I'm retiring next year. We could use more doctors who understand what abuse looks like from both sides." I smiled, thinking about my pre-med major starting in the fall. "Maybe I'll take your place someday," I said. "Help other people find their voice through medicine." My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "I know you don't need it, but I'm proud of you. You're stronger than I ever was." I didn't respond immediately. Our relationship was still complicated, a work in progress that might never fully heal. But at least now there was honesty between us. Later that night, as I packed more boxes for college, I found an old family photo. Marcus and me before everything went wrong, before Dad died, before the violence started. I didn't feel sad looking at it anymore. Instead, I felt peaceful. The truth had set me free, but it had done more than that. It had given me a future I never thought possible when I was living in fear. A future where I could help others, where I could thrive instead of just survive. As I placed the photo in a box marked "Past," I smiled. The hospital records had told my story, but I was the one writing my future now, and it was going to be brilliant.